Chapter 21 London Star. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Stop talking, Your Excellency, you have misunderstood. My relationship with Mr. James is only friends. Faced with Baron's doubts about her, Yulia explained. I admit that we once had feelings for each other, but, in the end we both chose to safeguard the interests and honor of the Duke of Devonshire family, and I have a clear conscience about this. Baron shrugged helplessly and said. It doesn't make much sense to say this now, does it? After all, the deceased is gone. But it seems that my dear brother has not given up on you in his heart. Yes, you shouldn't say that, Mr. James. Your Lordship, if you have any doubts about my work, then I will resign as fund manager after you take over the family fund. You need to understand, Ms. Moore, the family is facing a crisis now, and I need to work hard to save the family from the crisis. This requires the cooperation of everyone, including you. Baron shook his head and said with a sad look on his face. But at this time, instead of abandoning your prejudices and working together with me, you are ready to resign. This is very disappointing to me. It's not that Baron really has to keep Yulia instead of kicking her away, the key is that he came to this world of England alone, and it is impossible to say that he is personally responsible for all the industries, even if the Cavendish family's industry is still far from those wealthy people at this time, it is still considered complex. It was easy to fire Yulia. After he completed the inheritance process and took control of the family trust fund, it was just a matter of words, but what about after firing her? Is there still a need for a family fund manager? Are others more trustworthy? At least Yulia is already very familiar with those businesses, and now it seems that she is still loyal to the Cavendish family, but she is just a little prejudiced against herself. It is precisely because Baron is a soul that has traveled through time, so he can look at this matter objectively. Indeed, his performance in his previous life was too unreliable, however, proper beating is still necessary. Later, Baron will continue to look at the opponent's performance, and at the same time, he will also look for reliable talents for himself. Even if Yulia is replaced, someone will be available. Ms. Moore, can you tell me something about the London Star now? London Star. Upon hearing this name, Yulia's expression turned cautious. What do you want to know? Everything you know. London Star is the name of the investment company. The boss of the company is William Abagnale, an investor who claims to be born in Birmingham and later went to New York, where he achieved great success. Following Yulia's words, Baron learned more about the deeds of the fraudster who had caused the Duke of Devonshire family to lose more than £25 million. It turned out that 2 years ago, William Abagnale brought his team to London and opened an investment company called London Star. After that, he appeared in many high-class parties and some business activities in London. Not only was he an extraordinary talker, but he was also generous with his money. Gradually, the entire circle of wealthy and aristocratic people began to spread stories about William's successful deeds on Wall Street. The most important thing is that some of the investment examples he claimed, after careful exploration, actually had related rumors on Wall Street. The investment products provided by William's London Star Company are very special. They do not provide returns based on time. Instead, each project will have a 3 to 6 month cycle. After the cycle is over, settlement will be carried out, and investors obtain returns. The most important thing is that he actually guarantees investors return on investment. It is not a guarantee of principal, but also includes 10% of investment income. In other words, the funds invested in their projects will not only cause no losses, if there are losses, they will be made up by London Star, and even if the profit return is less than 10%, he will make up the difference. It can be said that such investment conditions are very attractive. After all, for most people, even investment products with a stable annual return of 10% are difficult to come across, not to mention that each investment cycle is only 3 to 6 months. Of course, it is precisely because of such attractive conditions that many people initially doubted it, but after all, there are still people who are bold and dare to try. All doubts disappeared 4 months later when the first London Star project was completed, because everyone who invested in this project at that time received more than 25% of the profits at that time. The London Star's second cycle project has been pursued by many nobles. Yes, William claimed that his ancestors were some declining nobles and hoped to revive the family's prestige, so he mainly made friends with noble groups. It is precisely because many noble families have empty ancestral properties and lack investment channels, or in other words, many of their investments often end in failure. Therefore, the London Star investment project, which is almost a profit-making project, is naturally welcomed by this group. Baron's father began to participate in the investment of London Star in the second cycle, and at the beginning, he was extremely cautious and only invested £500,000 in this project, because according to William's regulations, according to the rules, the minimum investment threshold to join London Star is £500,000. What happened next is not difficult to imagine. After the second phase of the London Star project was completed, more than 3 months later, the Cavendish family's investment of £500,000 received a return of up to 21%, turning it into more than £600,000. In the face of such exciting profits, even the always cautious old Duke became eager to give it a try and continued to increase investment, although his decision was repeatedly dissuaded by Yulia at the time. With the subsequent receipt of 2 consecutive high profits, the old Duke no longer had any doubts about the London Star. After all, some people have calculated that after 3 cycles of the London Star project, the investment income paid to investors by William Abagnale's company alone has exceeded £20 million. What liar would use it? Why spend so much money to commit fraud? Totally impossible. Therefore, later on, the old Duke invested more than £30 million in the London Star project. At the same time, there were also other nobles involved in this project who had invested heavily. Finally, after the London Star project exploded, William Abagnale fled England and disappeared with his team. According to it is estimated that the total amount of fraud committed by the London Star exceeds £500 million. Most of this money flowed out of England through various channels, and what was left behind in the end was a pile of chicken feathers. After this incident, I also deliberately collected some information about the London Star and William Abagnale, but it is still difficult to distinguish between true and false. To this day, the stupid police still have no clue. Yulia's words made Baron vaguely guess. I am afraid that it is precisely because this case mainly involves the nobles, and it is in line with the general trend of the government to weaken the nobles, so the police will not be under too much pressure from above. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 22 His Royal Highness the Duke. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Today, you will become our most trustworthy and beloved partner. I hope that you will always remember your mission, be loyal to the royal family, and regard the glory of Britain as your life. At this time, Baron Cavendish was wearing a dark red velvet coat, a hat on his head, with 4 stripes of ermine, and a gold ring on his crown decorated with 8 gold leaves. Wearing this ducal costume, he half knelt before the Queen. The Queen held the knight's sword and slapped him twice on the shoulder. At this moment, the ceremony was completed, and Baron officially became the 13th Duke of Devonshire. In England, the heirs of ordinary noble families can only hold a ceremony in the family to inherit the title after being reviewed and confirmed by a specialized noble management agency. As for the succession of Baron's title, he had the honor of having the Queen personally perform the ceremony when he met with her. The reason why the Queen made such a decision is that, in addition to the title of Duke, it is the highest level among non-royal nobles, and is sorted according to the time of granting by the British dukes. The Duke of Devonshire is among the 24 non-royal dukes still alive. In addition to being ranked 8th in the ranking, it is considered prominent. It also has some support for the Duke of Devonshire family in the context of the British government's intention to weaken the royal family and the nobility at this time. Your Highness, the Queen is personally conducting the title succession ceremony for you. How do you feel now? Duke Devonshire, we know that your family is in financial crisis. We don't know how to deal with it next. As the youngest existing duke in England at this time, the 22-year-old Baron Cavendish's duke succession ceremony naturally attracted many media and reporters. After walking out of Buckingham Palace, a long-armed man appeared in front of him. Cannons, and many reporters also asked questions. It can be said that many hereditary nobles have lost their inheritance in England, especially the ducal family. Today there are only 24 non-royal families left. The appearance of Baron Cavendish, a 22-year-old duke, can also gain the support of many people. Pay attention, among the other dukes, the youngest one is 10 years older than Baron. I am very honored to be personally canonized by Her Majesty the Queen. This will also be my supreme honor. As for the situation of our family, it is not as exaggerated as the rumors. It is just that we have experienced some minor twists and turns. I will do my best. If you can revive the family, thank you. After giving such a reply, Baron signaled to the Queen's Guard officer who was responsible for the palace's security and order. The other party's commanding guard stopped the reporters who still wanted to continue asking questions. Then, in the eyes of the other party, Baron turned and left, sitting down. Get into your own Rolls-Royce. Your Highness, I have conveyed your intention to Viscount Bute, saying that we will not consider selling the land for the Victoria gas storage tank in King's Cross, but we are still willing to jointly fund development with them, but we need to renegotiate the cooperation method. After returning to the apartment, Yulia's name for him was different from before. After an on-site visit to King's Cross Station, Baron had already decided to reject Viscount Bute's proposal to acquire the land, because at that moment, Baron suddenly discovered a problem, that is, the buildings and layout around King's Cross Station at this time were very different from the scenes in his memory when he visited London more than 10 years later in his previous life. Some people may be confused about this. After more than 10 years, isn't it normal for a city to undergo earth-shaking changes somewhere in the city? Well, this impression is often an illusion caused by living in China, which has been developing rapidly. In fact, in most places in Europe, for more than 10 years, the urban scenery has almost remained static as if it were still. The norm there, even many century-old stations and subways at transportation hubs are almost the same as they were 100 years ago, which is not incredible, but right here at King's Cross Station, the changes are very obvious, which Baron suddenly discovered only after his on-site visit, more than 10 years later, although the general appearance of King's Cross Station at this time still remained. It was obviously renovated and expanded later, and what he remembered very clearly was that the previous King's Cross Station was adjacent to St. Pancras. As the terminal station in England for the Eurostar Express train that connected continental Europe to England at that time, it was just a functional station at this time, and the inspiration for those gas storage tanks was also activated at that time, because in the previous life, the location of the gas storage tanks was also 3 huge barrel-shaped buildings, but it was already a high-end building named King's Mansion apartment houses. Obviously, they were built by modifying the gas storage tanks. Although the shape is the same, the appearance is completely different. The glass curtain walls and bright lights of those high-end apartments made Baron's impression at that time completely different from the huge and ugly gas storage tanks he saw now. Coupled with the huge differences in many buildings around the station between the previous life and this time, Baron realized that during this period, King's Cross Station had definitely undergone a major renovation project, thereby transforming this area into slum area has become the rather beautiful and unique emerging cultural and commercial district in its previous life. If such a major regional renovation project is really carried out, then it would be very reasonable for the 3 highly conspicuous gas storage tanks in this area to become high-end apartment buildings in the future. The ability to build these residential buildings in the future also means that the approval for converting industrial land into residential land has been completed. In the context of the major regional transformation project, he speculated, the difficulty of obtaining such approval will not be too great. If this is the case, then Baron can think of the reason why Viscount Bute is so interested in this land. It is very likely that he has known about the King's Cross Station and surrounding reconstruction projects in advance through certain channels. Plan. Now what Baron has to do next is to find a way to confirm this. If it is really Viscount Bute who wants to take action on his piece of land for gas storage tanks because he learned some information in advance, then based on his actions in terms of timeline, I am afraid that the time when this transformation plan will be announced and implemented will not be too far away. Baron could confirm that there was such a renovation plan based on his memories of the vicinity of King's Cross Station in his previous life, but he still needed to speculate on the specific time when the plan would be launched. This was why he decided to reject Viscount Butte's proposal to acquire the land. However, we will still discuss the reasons for joint development between the two parties. After all, he didn't want to waste money here prematurely, but he couldn't give up the temptation of developing a real estate project in such a central area of London. Perhaps he could transform these gas tanks into the King's mansion by his own hands. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 23 Bonnie's Invitation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, although Baron wanted to inquire from Viscount Butte about the renovation plan near King's Cross Station, the land for the gas storage tank was in his hands at this time and he had the initiative, so there was no need to rush. After expressing his willingness to cooperate, just wait and see what happens, so after completing the ceremony of being awarded the title of Duke, Baron was ready to leave London. Back to Chatsworth, on the one hand, it was to get some peace and quiet. After the Golden Jubilee celebration, because the youngest Duke of Devonshire was canonized by the Queen herself, Baron Cavendish's name was once again included in the reports of newspapers and media. Now even near his apartment, reporters with cameras hanging around their necks can be seen from time to time. Well, if you have seen the madness of British tabloid reporters, you can understand Baron's mood at this time. In addition, this can be regarded as a retreat. Leaving London and returning to Chatsworth Manor, you can deal with the family assets and gauge the reaction of Viscount Butte. As for the Asahi World Cup, which is still in full swing at this time, in fact, in Baron's eyes at this time, World Cup betting is very much like small-cap stocks in the stock market. The characteristic of small-cap stocks is that driven by good news or speculation, there will be huge increases, and the price can often rise several times, more than 10 times or even higher. However, small-cap stocks, precisely because of their small size and relatively low circulation, are not suitable for large capital operations. Just like the World Cup betting, in the early days, Baron had a relatively small amount of funds, so he could use all the funds for betting, full position operation. Now that the amount of funds exceeds £10 million, it is like facing large funds in small-cap stocks. It is impossible to invest all the funds in them, or even only a small part. In this way, Baron can diversify his existing funds, purchase games selected in a later period in advance, and only need to wait for the results to appear before redeeming the prize. He no longer has to stay in London or go to France, and can use this time to return to Chatsworth Manor. But before leaving London, Baron had one more thing to do. Ms. Moore, you said before that our family fund currently still has a bank loan of £25 million, right? Yes, Duke Baron, plus other debts and loan interest, the total debt is nearly £30 million. Yulia took out a document and handed it to Baron and said, "According to your instructions, I have listed all these liabilities in detail and explained them. There are also copies of the relevant debt documents." Baron's eyes scanned the document and took a general look at the debt list. "Thank you, Ms. Moore, it's a very detailed form. I will take the time to look at it carefully. I may have to call you later." After that day, Yulia also felt that Baron had obviously changed a lot, especially compared with the unreliable playboy in his previous impression. Maybe after experiencing the drastic changes in the family, it would make people feel uncomfortable. Mature soon, I hope he can really change and save the Cavendish family. Thinking of this, Yulia's tone became much gentler. "This is my duty, Duke Baron. Is there anything else?" "There is indeed something else, that is, please inform the creditors and the bank managers who lent us the loans. I hope to talk with them." "Are you all called?" But there was doubt in Yulia's tone, and she didn't know what Baron had in mind. "People from the bank can make an appointment to meet us tomorrow afternoon. As for the creditors, we can make an appointment there after we return to Chatsworth Manor." "Mr. Baron. Oh, by the way, congratulations. You should now be called His Highness Duke Baron." "Bonnie, I'm glad to receive your call. Besides, I told you, just call me Baron. I don't think friends need to be so polite. After sending Yulia away, Baron received a call from Bonnie somewhat unexpectedly. Ever since I met this delicate-faced beauty at the banquet at Viscount Butte's house that day, during this period because I rejected Viscount Butte's proposal to buy land near King's Cross Station, and he himself was actually a little busy, he was really happy. Have not contacted the other party. Hearing the sweet voice of the other party at this time, Baron not only thought of this beauty's elven appearance and slender legs, but also was a little curious about the reason why she took the initiative to call him this time. Well, will you go to Berkshire in 2 days? Berkshire? Baron asked doubtfully. Yes, have you forgotten? The Royal Ascot is about to start. Because this year is the Queen's Golden Jubilee, the scale is bigger than ever. When Bonnie said this, Baron remembered that it turned out that the Queen's Golden Jubilee celebration had just been held and it was time for the annual Royal Ascot in England, also known as Ascot Jockey Club, as an important event that cannot be ignored on the British social calendar. The Royal Ascot has always maintained its reputation as the most luxurious event in the world. This event has a history of more than 300 years and has always been one of the annual events most valued by traditional British people. One morning in the early summer of 1711, Queen Anne of England went on a horseback trip to an open area not far from Windsor Castle. She found that this was an excellent place for horses to run wildly, and the idea of holding a horse race was born. The idea started the history of Royal Ascot. The Royal Ascot begins in the 3rd week of June every year. The venue is Berkshire, located in southern England, west of Greater London and south of the Thames River. It has beautiful scenery and is a natural horse racing resort. For hundreds of years, members of the British royal family, represented by the Queen, must participate in the game every year. The current Queen is a loyal fan of the Royal Ascot Jockey Club and sends her own horse to participate almost every year. The final winner will also be presented with the award by the Queen herself. It can be said that the British Royal Equestrian Club is regarded as one of the classic sports that demonstrates the elegance of Western aristocrats. Are you going to attend? Bonnie, who else? I'm planning to go. I was delayed from last year's horse racing meeting because of work. In addition, my cousin and Viscount Butte will also go together. When we went to their house today, we also talked about you. Sure enough, this time Bonnie's invitation contained the shadow of Viscount Butte, but she didn't know whether the other party took the initiative to help Viscount Butte to make an appointment with her, or was she also kept in the dark. Well, I'm really a little disappointed. Bonnie, I thought your invitation was meant to be a private date between the two of us. At this time, Baron walked to the window, looked at the lights in the night outside the window, and said with a faint smile on his face. If it's a date, the gentleman should propose it first, Baron. Listening to Bonnie's slightly coquettish tone, Baron replied. I'm really sorry, Bonnie. You know I have too many things going on recently, so I haven't had much time. I think I should make up for it in time, but I don't know if you can accept it. Then I want to hear what kind of remedy it is first, Baron. Actually, I'm afraid I won't be able to attend the Royal Ascot the day after tomorrow because I need to go back to the family manor and there are some urgent matters that need to be dealt with. That's it. Actually, I originally wanted to invite you to Chatsworth Manor. The scenery there is beautiful and different from London. But I'm afraid you will miss this year's Jockey Club again. It's really confusing, Baron, you gave me a difficult problem, I need to think about it. The next second Bonnie said these words, she couldn't help laughing. Okay, I have decided to go to your manor as a guest. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 24. The lines are so familiar. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After making an appointment with Bonnie to go to Chatsworth Manor together, Baron hung up the phone, and the image of her seductive long legs that day emerged in Baron's mind. Why do I suddenly have such a strong desire to learn? But speaking of it, since I came to this world, I only had one encounter with Aurora. it made sense considering that I was only 22 years old and a young body with overproduction of hormones, Aurora. As soon as the name appeared, Bonnie's alluring long legs were quickly replaced by the enthusiasm of her ex-girlfriend. After all, the long night, so Baron picked up his phone and found Aurora's number, until the fourth connection tone, when Baron thought that the other party was not even ready to answer his call, Aurora's voice came from the receiver. "Baron? Is that you?" "Yes, it's me, beautiful Aurora, are you at home?" "Yes." After Aurora responded, her tone suddenly turned defensive and asked. "Why are you asking that?" "Baron. It's nothing, it's just that if you are at home, then we are very close now. Although the distance between our hearts can transcend the space barrier no matter what, I think that you are not far from me, talking to you like this. I seem to feel that you are beside me. If you have anything to say, just say it directly, Baron. By the way, I would like to congratulate you on being canonized by the Queen herself. You do still care about me, Aurora. This is just concern as a friend. Well, even if ordinary friends can have such a thing, I will congratulate you. Baron, you know I once wanted to open up to you, but you hurt me that day. Yes, I am very hurt, so if you don't have anything else to do, then I'm going to sleep. Wait a minute, like you said, we are at least still friends, right? And we have had such a wonderful time. In fact, thinking about everything that night, I really want to see you again, tonight. When Baron was talking about what happened that night, he clearly heard Aurora's voice becoming urgent on the phone, but his next words were immediately interrupted by the other party. F***K. Baron, if you don't have amnesia, you should remember that I said I would never see you again. I thought that was just angry talk, dear. No, at least it's impossible until I completely treat you as a damn stranger. Baron, but I'm afraid that when that day comes, there will be no need for us to meet. Well, Aurora, I thought we could at least be good friends. After hearing what the other party said, although he was still determined, his tone was already slightly loose. Baron managed his emotions for a while, then sighed and said. Not to mention what happened that night, I actually prepared a nice bottle of red wine today. You know, I have been having a very hard time recently. In addition to facing the endless sadness that always attacks me suddenly, I am also burdened with a heavy burden. Responsibility, Aurora, that night with you can be said to be the most relaxing and happiest moment I have had in a while. Baron, you know I can't see you. I can't do anything wrong again. Just as a friend, Aurora, or should I finish this bottle of wine alone? That will probably be a night overwhelmed by sad and negative emotions. This is too frustrating. The current bank loan principal borne by the Duke of Devonshire family totals approximately £25 million, of which £15 million are short-term loans that will mature before the end of this year. The closest maturity date is a £2 million loan from Barclays Bank, which will mature in early August, only 1.5 months ago. At the same time, Barclays Bank is also the bank that has issued the largest number of loans to the Duke of Devonshire family. More than half of their bank loans come from Barclays Bank, and they have also mortgaged most of their assets, including Chatsworth Manor, to the other party. There are 3 remaining banks on the table in front of Baron, and the lowest one also issued a loan of £2 million to the Devonshire family. After making 2 calls to Yulia, Baron basically clarified the loan situation borne by the family at this time. Next, in the afternoon, he will discuss this with representatives of these banks. After stretching, Baron put down the information that Yulia had given him yesterday and walked out of the study. Your Excellency, the breakfast prepared earlier has gone cold. Do you want to replace it? Ramos, the valet waiting in the living room, saw Baron, walk to his side, and asked softly. Please prepare another one. Okay, Your Majesty. Seeing Ramos go over to clear the table, Baron stepped up to the second floor. Just when he opened the bedroom door, a pillow flew towards him and was caught by Baron with quick eyes and hands. F***K, Baron, you bastard, huh. This line sounds so familiar. It seems that you are awake, dear Aurora, and you seem to be in good spirits. You can wash up and go downstairs for dinner. Seeing Aurora sitting on her knees on the bed in the bedroom, staring at him with an angry face, Baron said unhurriedly. "And you have to admit that last night was wonderful, wasn't it? You didn't look like you do now at that time. You were." "Stop talking, Baron, I shouldn't believe your lies, get out." "I want to get dressed." Baron's eyes swept across Aurora's graceful body, raised his eyebrows, and said with a smile. "Well, honey, if you can calm down and go downstairs for breakfast." "Hello, gentlemen, even if you already know my identity, for the sake of politeness, I need to introduce myself for the first time. I am Baron Cavendish, and I am also the current Duke of Devonshire. Owner of a family trust." In the study, 4 sofas were placed opposite Baron. The 4 men in suits and ties were representatives from the 4 banks that had provided loans to the family at this time. "Originally, I was supposed to visit you all in turn, but due to time constraints, I can only trouble you all to come here together in order to have a candid discussion about the loans that are about to expire." At this time, Baron found out interestingly that the 4 gentlemen opposite him all looked at him, and in their eyes, there was a hint of worry to varying degrees. It seems that he has been prepared. Will the young Duke in front of him say something like, "We can no longer afford to repay the loan" in the next sentence? Okay, everyone can relax and don't be so serious. In fact, your loan will not be in any danger. After hearing Baron's words, one of the gentlemen who looked a bit like Prince William after 30 years of age could not help but say, "If, as you say, our loans are not in danger and can be repaid on time, Your Highness, then just wait until they expire and then you return them. Why call us all here? The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much." Chapter 25 Friendship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Baron glanced at the other person and knew that he was Burris, the representative of North Rock Bank. This bank had issued a total of £5 million in loans to his family. "Mr. Burris, if you didn't interrupt me, I'm afraid I would have already answered your question. In fact, I only care about whether our bank's loan can be recovered on time, Your Highness the Duke." Baron faced the other party's direct gaze and said coldly, "If you only care about this matter, then Mr. Burris, you can leave now. You will probably be wasting your time next." Being so suddenly ordered to be kicked out by Baron, Burris from North Rock Bank looked stunned and turned to react. His face turned green and red, and when he was about to say something, he heard Baron's faint words. Said, "I can answer you now. The loan will be paid back on time, and it can even be paid off in advance before the end of the month. But I want to remind you that if it is paid off in advance, I will not pay the subsequent interest." Mr. Burris stood up, opened his mouth, and the few hairs on his head seemed to be shaking, and finally gritted his teeth and said, "We will wait for you to settle the loan in advance, Your Highness the Duke." Then he left the study without looking back. After Burris left, Baron looked at the remaining 3 gentlemen. These representatives who can represent their respective banks are naturally not newbies. Regardless of whether they are cunning or not, the city government will definitely have enough. Before Burris left, these people just looked at each other, and then looked at Baron together, without any fluctuation in their eyes. "Now, Your Highness the Duke, can you continue talking to us?" The speaker was Rolf, the representative of Barclays Bank. From the introduction they just met, Baron knew that Rolf was responsible for the credit business in London at Barclays Bank. "Gentlemen, maybe you have seen or heard some reports and rumors about our family before. Indeed, we encountered a little trouble before, but these have been resolved. Your Majesty, has there been any progress in the case of the London Star?" As soon as Baron finished speaking, someone asked impatiently. "Unfortunately, those stupid London police didn't give me any surprises." If the low efficiency of handling the case is not a surprise. Baron's words made everyone in the room burst into laughter. "But in addition, we have other sources of funds. You must know that the Cavendish family has been passed down to this day and will not fall down so easily." After a pause, Baron said seriously, "I invite you all to come here today. In addition to reassuring everyone that the loans are completely risk-free, the main purpose is to select a partner for my future real estate projects. Can you tell me more specifically? Your Highness the Duke. After hearing Baron's words, Rolf asked with interest. Because some business secrets are involved, I need you to show some sincerity. What kind of sincerity? You can choose to have us settle the loan after it expires, or even settle the loan in advance. Of course, the subsequent interest will naturally need to be waived, or you can choose to extend the term of the loan for us and get further discussions about this opportunities for real estate project financing cooperation. Baron shrugged and said. And you can rest assured that interest will be paid on time during the extended loan term. His words made the three gentlemen no longer calm, and they were all thinking about the pros and cons. Not to mention whether the so-called real estate project mentioned by His Royal Highness the Duke is reliable. As far as the current situation is concerned, it seems that it is more stable to get back the loan. But is it really that simple? Is it possible to gain more by taking a little risk? After all, the loans they lend are not made out of thin air. They are all mortgaged by real estate. Even if the loan cannot be repaid in the end, the collateral can still be recovered. At most, it will be more troublesome to deal with the real estate. Your Highness the Duke, I'm sorry, but our first priority is to recover the loan, and we hope to have the opportunity to continue cooperation in the future. Of course, you don't need to settle it in advance, you just need to pay it back on time. After thinking for a moment, one of the bank representatives stood up, shook Baron's hand, and said to him, obviously, this is a safer choice made by the other party. Then, another bank representative made the same decision as him, so after shaking hands with Baron, he left the study. Mr. Rolf, I can understand if you make the same decision. The last one left was the representative of Barclays Bank. He smiled and said to Baron. On the contrary, Barclays Bank cares more about the friendship with His Highness the Duke. We can consider extending your loan term. However, if I can know more about the details of your real estate project, I believe I will be more confident in convincing the board of directors. It has to be said that as one of the four largest private banks in the UK, and its loans account for more than half of the loans borne by the Duke of Devonshire family, if Barclays Bank can extend the term of the loan, then Baron's interview today will already be a success. Yes. Because this real estate project is still under planning, of course, we will definitely have a candid talk before the latest loan from your bank expires. That's no problem at all. Your Highness, Barclays Bank will always serve its customers wholeheartedly, especially you. When he said goodbye to Rolf later, Baron stood in front of the study window and watched Rolf get into a car and leave downstairs, with a thoughtful expression on his face. In fact, according to Baron's betting calculations, by the end of this Asahi World Cup, the funds he can finally obtain will be completely sufficient to repay the debts borne by the family at this time, considering that these loans are due one after another. And even have time to use some of the funds for investment. So the reason why he acted like this today, inviting representatives of these banks to meet in the study room to talk about the loan extension, can be said to have a purpose. On the one hand, if the loan can really be extended, then Baron will have richer funds for investment, so that he will get more generous returns based on the memories of his past life. After all, whether it is international oil prices or gold prices, from now on, in the next few years, they will be a long-term rising channel. Knowing this trend, and facing these two investment products with extremely large circulation, the only thing he lacked was sufficient funds, not to mention that the land he hopes to develop for the Victorian gas storage tank near King's Cross Station also requires a lot of capital. Although pre-sale of real estate is allowed in England, the customer's payment time and proportion during pre-sale are very strict. There are regulations, and you cannot receive the full payment before construction of the building has started or before it is completed. Therefore, for developers, developing commercial residential projects still requires a certain degree of financial strength. On the other hand, it was actually a kind of test by Baron. He had once wondered whether Viscount Bute had other allies in some plans against his family. Is there any cooperation from banks in this? Therefore, when he revealed today that he hoped to seek financing from 4 banks for a future real estate project, Rolf, the representative of Barclays Bank who finally agreed, caught his attention. the data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 26. Well done. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With the referee's whistle, the game ends. After 2 red cards, the 9-man Portugal team finally lost to the 11-man South Korean team with a score of 0-1. This also represents that this golden generation of Portugal stopped in the group stage of the World Cup. At this time, Baron had returned to Chatsworth Manor in Derbyshire, belonging to the Duke of Devonshire family, and was accompanied by Bonnie, who came from London with him. It's really beautiful. When I come here, I can always experience the luxurious aristocratic life firsthand. From the moment she saw Chatsworth Manor standing by the river from a distance, Bonnie couldn't help but admire the beauty of the tall castle-like villa. At this time, Bonnie was walking beside Baron in the manor. Her eyes with emerald green pupils looked at Baron and said, "Actually, I've been here before." It can be said that Bonnie's appearance is extremely stunning, and her green pupils add a bit of mystery to her beauty. Green pupils are extremely rare. People with such a pair of eyes only account for 2% of the world's population. They are mainly distributed among Celts, Germans, and Slavs. Bonnie's eyes are from of her Irish ancestry, but at this time Baron was more interested in her words. "Have you been here before?" "I have no impression. I wrote novels before when I was in college, but they were never published. At that time, I was very interested in the life of aristocrats, and I specially came to visit Chatsworth Manor." When she said this, Baron understood. Chatsworth Manor is also open to the public for visitors to visit, but only in non-private public areas. This was originally because at the time of Baron's grandfather, due to the inheritance tax of up to £7 million, he had to find ways to make money. This included opening up part of the Chatsworth estate for tourists to pay a visit, and opening up to outsiders. Rented for filming and various events. This situation has continued to this day and has become part of the family's income. It turns out you are still a talented woman. I really hope I am lucky enough to read the novels you wrote. Baron's compliment made Bonnie blush slightly, and she said a little shyly, "It was just out of interest at the time. I tried to submit articles, but they were all rejected. I received a reply from the editor, saying that my writing and description were good, but the story was weak, so I gradually gave up." Butler Sean, is this, that while having lunch with Bonnie, Baron noticed that among the dishes served by the valet, there was a dish with a somewhat unique appearance. In the memory of him and his predecessor, it seemed that it had not yet been served at Chatsworth Manor. Having eaten this dish before, he couldn't help but wonder whether the cook had been replaced in the manor without him knowing. Seeing that Baron finally noticed this dish, Butler Sean walked up behind Baron gracefully. "Your Excellency, this Chinese food is called crab rangoon, and it tastes very good." "Chinese food? You said this is Chinese food?" Baron looked at the 6 pieces of food that were arranged quite neatly on the plate in front of him and looked like fried dumplings. He fell into deep thought. Pick one up with a fork and put it in your mouth. "Well, it does contain stuffing, cheese and crab meat." "How is it?" "Your Majesty the Duke." Paying attention to Baron's expression, Butler Sean said, "Cook Olivia heard that you suddenly fell in love with Chinese food in London, and went to Derbyshire to learn this dish from a Chinese chef." Seeing Butler Sean's expression that said please praise, Baron tried his best to control his expression, took a deep breath, and said, "Well done, don't do it again in the future." After lunch, Bonnie was asked to go to the guest room to rest. After coming here and visiting some places in the manor, Bonnie could see some fatigue on her face. Baron, on the other hand, went to the study and listened to the butler Sean's report on what happened after he left Chatsworth Manor. Although he also talked to Baron on the phone during this period, it was not as serious as an interview. Detailed and accurate. "Your Majesty, a male servant and 2 maids have previously offered to resign. According to your instructions, I have agreed to resign. In addition, the old lady's personal maid, as discussed with you on the phone, will remain here. Doing some easy chores in the manor will allow her to retire in peace in 2 years. At the beginning, Butler Sean was talking about the changes in the servants of Chatsworth Manor. In addition to 3 people who resigned on their own initiative, including Baron's father and brother's valet, they were all dismissed directly and given 2 jobs. People wrote letters of recommendation. In addition, 5 more servants were dismissed, and now the number of servants in the entire Chatsworth Manor is less than 20. Originally, Baron wanted to fire more people. After all, he didn't plan to live here permanently for the time being, and he didn't need so many people on a daily basis. However, on the one hand, considering that dismissing too many people at once can easily cause others to panic. In addition, Chatsworth Manor is now open to the public for tours and some event services, which still requires a lot of manpower, so this is the case for the time being. Yes, Baron is not planning to live in Chatsworth Manor for a while. Chatsworth Manor does look quaint and grand, and the interior decoration is extremely luxurious, but in the final analysis, Baron's soul comes from the modern society of his previous life, and he is accustomed to those modern lives. Just like when you travel to many places, it feels strange at first, but over time, your own home is more comfortable. The same is true here. When he last came to live at Chatsworth Manor, Baron was still very novel and felt quite comfortable experiencing the life of a British aristocrat, but as time passed, he began to feel more and more uncomfortable with the arrangement and life of this old era, and although it has been repaired from time to time, Chatsworth Manor is an ancient house with a history of hundreds of years. Apart from very few modern appliances, after years of baptism, Baron lived here for many years. They all feel a bit indescribably decadent. Therefore, he planned to carry out a relatively thorough repair and redecoration here in the future, and then live here permanently. After all, his most important thing now is to seize the time to make money and expand the scale of the industry. Relatively speaking, Chatsworth Manor is far away from the city and too leisurely. London is more suitable for him. That's fine. The manor can continue to be open to the public for visits and the rental business. It's not bad to come back occasionally for a vacation. After he has more capital, he can repair the entire manor and bring this centuries-old manor back to life. By the way, Lord Duke, I have packed up the master bedroom upstairs for you. You can move in. And some of the old Duke's belongings have been placed in the room next to the bedroom. You can take a look and decide what to do. Deal with. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 27: The Decline of the Nobility. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The master bedroom has been greatly changed from before. Both the bedding and many furniture and decorations have been rearranged according to Baron's previous room. To be honest, even so, it is not particularly in line with Baron's preferences at this time, but considering that the entire manor will be completely renovated in the future, there is no need to adjust it now. The room next to this bedroom is almost filled with many things, leaving only a circle of passages. According to the butler Sean, it will be up to him to decide whether these things should be kept. Among these things, the most numerous ones are a whole row of boxes. Inside these boxes are all clothes. Many of them look new and are obviously well preserved. In the aristocratic life of the old days, many women could change 3 outfits a day. You can imagine how much space was needed to store their clothes. Therefore, including the clothes left by the old lady and many female relatives of the family, plus Baron's father and brother, so many clothes, even if they are placed in boxes and displayed here, are extremely spectacular. In fact, many times in this manner, Baron always has the feeling that time passes very slowly here. The outside world is changing and developing rapidly, but in this manner, even though it has entered the new century, it still has a strong shadow of the Victorian era. What suddenly came to Baron's mind were the words of the American mother-in-law in the previous life's Downton Abbey. You British nobles are not only flashy, but also extremely boring. The reason why I traveled thousands of miles to come here is because I want to participate in this kind of event one last time before I can still move around. I feel like you are getting worse every year. And what she said to the old lady. My world is an upcoming future, your world is a history that is gradually receding. Baron's soul had been living in China in his previous life, where the monarchy had long been overthrown and the nobility no longer existed. When I watched the show at the time, I didn't feel deeply about it. It wasn't until I came here, in the manner that represented the family's past glory, and as the Duke of Devonshire, that I experienced the life of the nobility, as well as the lives of many nobles at this time that I had seen and heard about, that I had personal feelings. Yes, the British nobility, and even the royal family, are in decline. This decline is particularly evident in terms of economy and power. Traditionally, land is an important source of income for the British nobility. It can be said that the nobility once occupied a large share of the land in England. At the end of the 18th century, 400 noble families owned 20% of the country's real estate. By the end of the 19th century, this share reached 24%. It is precisely because of the large amount of land owned by the nobles that they can live a luxurious life with hordes of servants by relying only on land rent and not doing production. Just like in Downton Abbey, the old lady once directly asked her eldest cousin, "What is a weekend?" Well, for the aristocrats at that time, every day was a weekend, and there was no concept of working days. Ladies could change 3 sets of clothes a day and party from time to time. From the perspective of British history, the turning point in the economic strength of the aristocracy from prosperity to decline occurred in 1894. This year, the Liberal Party cabinet announced that an 8% inheritance tax would be levied on those with property worth more than £1 million. This is the first time England has levied an inheritance tax on nobles, but it is just the beginning. Between 1909 and 1914, the tax rate was increased to 15%, and has been increasing year by year since then. By 1939 it had reached 60%. After World War II, the Labour government increased the inheritance tax rate to 80% for those with a family fortune of more than £1 million. The nobles now gave up and shouted in the House of Lords, "This is simply robbery at knife point." The result is that it does not help. The tax will still be collected, and defaulters will have to pay an additional 8% interest. The Conservative government that subsequently came to power showed no mercy and continued to implement the policy of robbing the rich and giving to the poor. The direct consequence of high inheritance taxes is that when family inheritance issues arise, nobles have to sell manor houses and family collections of art to make up for financial shortfalls. After several inheritances and inheritance taxes being paid again and again, no matter how strong a family fortune is, its vitality will be severely damaged. By 1976, the estates of the nobility had fallen by 76% in England and Wales and by 69% in Scotland. As time went by, the British aristocracy owned less and less real estate, and their luxurious life became unsustainable. There are even many British nobles who, forced to make a living, have to put aside their status and open their manors and private territories to the public to make a little money. Just like the Duke of Devonshire family, their vitality was severely damaged because of this. His grandfather encountered an inheritance tax of up to 80% at that time. Faced with this policy, many nobles began to pass on family assets in the form of trust funds, which could avoid most inheritance taxes. Baron's grandfather, the then Duke of Devonshire, inherited the family property just 5 years after his father established the family trust. Because the family trust fund was established less than 5 years ago, it must pay inheritance tax at a rate of 80%, resulting in the Duke of Devonshire having to pay an inheritance tax of £7 million. In order to preserve the family property, they had to sell part of the land, open the manor for the public to visit and rent, open hotels, hold horse racing meetings, etc. It took 24 years to earn the £7 million and late fees, so that the property belonged to the family and became a model among the nobility of the time. But in the face of such high inheritance taxes, there are not many aristocratic families who can work as diligently as the Devonshire family to maintain their family business, otherwise they would not become models. Other nobles were either lucky enough to turn their family assets into trust funds during that period, or they had to sell their properties, and many even declined. Even the highest-ranking ducal family among the remaining non-royal nobles is not immune. Generally speaking, the ceremonial order of British dukes is generally sorted according to the year when the title was conferred. The earlier the year when the title was conferred, the higher the ranking. For example, among the 24 non-royal dukes still alive, the 17th-ranked Duke of Manchester family had their family property squandered by successive generations. Later, the current duke moved to the United States, made a living by fraud, and was arrested many times. Interestingly, he himself was defrauded by others at the beginning. Their family is a standard declining noble. Coincidentally, the family of the Duke of St. Albans, ranked 6th, was also wiped out by taxes. They are not like the Duke of Devonshire family, who can spend 24 years to earn 80% of the ancestral property and keep the family property. This is true even for the Duke family, let alone other nobles. If we look at the industries run by aristocratic families with good economic conditions so far, land-related industries such as real estate, agriculture and tourism still account for the most. For example, the Duke of Westminster family, which is considered wealthy among the 24 Duke families, is mainly engaged in real estate. This family has a wealth of several billion pounds at this time, ranking among the top 15 richest people in the UK. The reason why their family is so rich, in addition to injecting family assets into trust funds early to avoid high inheritance taxes, is mainly because they own a large amount of land in London. More than a quarter of the land in London belongs to the Duke of Westminster family. Relying on these lands and through real estate, they gained a large amount of wealth, and were able to use this to acquire the land of other down-and-out aristocratic families, and purchased many properties in the United States, Australia and Canada. As for the Duke of Devonshire family at this time, it is very typical. In addition to Chatsworth Manor, the properties held by their family trust funds are distributed in Scotland, Ireland and 3 castle estates in Scotland. In addition, the rest of the industries involve agriculture, tourism, hotels, horse racing, etc. It can be said that those industries except agriculture were originally developed by Baron's grandfather in order to increase income and earn the £7 million of inheritance tax. In addition to the poor economic situation, the weakening of political power is also a major manifestation of the decline of the British aristocracy. The British Parliament is divided into 2 houses, the Upper House and the Lower House. The House of Lords is composed of members of the nobility, so it is also called the House of Lords. Initially, the House of Lords had veto power over bills passed by the House of Commons, and the upper and lower houses often disagreed. At that time, the House of Lords was still relatively powerful. After the passage of the Parliament Act of 1911, the relationship between the upper and lower houses changed. According to the 1911 Parliament Act, any financial bill passed by the House of Commons will become law as long as it is signed by the King 1 month after it is sent to the House of Lords for consideration. Regardless of whether it is approved by the House of Lords, all other social bills, if passed by the House of Commons 3 times within 2 years, can be submitted directly to the King for approval and become law, even if they are rejected by the House of Lords 3 times within 2 years. Then, in 1949, the Labour government enacted a new Parliament Act, reducing the period for the House of Lords to delay the power of veto from 2 years to 1 year. After these reforms, the House of Lords has basically become an institution without real power, and the British aristocracy can no longer exercise political power through the legislative process, although the official website of the British House of Lords clearly states that noble members play an important role in supervising the government's decisions. Since the House of Lords has no actual power at all, it is the same as whether to go or not. 60% the above nobles rarely attend meetings, and only 1/6 of the nobles attend half of the meetings every year. Among the regular attendees, there are some members of the nobility not for the purpose of supervising government decisions, but just to receive dozens of pounds of food and transportation subsidies. In 1999, the current Prime Minister Brilliant went even further and directly eliminated more than 600 members of the House of Lords, leaving only 92 members. It can be said that the nominal nature of the House of Lords was directly exposed. What's even more ironic is that Burler's reform to streamline the House of Lords did not receive much resistance, and many nobles even supported this decision. In fact, the more powerful nobles simply do not like the nursing home of the House of Lords. For some members, the biggest impact of the reduction of its staff is that the dozens of pounds of subsidies for occasionally attending meetings are gone. That's all. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 28. Think about it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In terms of administrative power, the British aristocracy was also greatly restricted. In the 18th and 19th centuries, most of the British prime ministers were aristocrats, including Baron's ancestor, the 4th Duke of Devonshire, who once served as the British Prime Minister. Another more famous British Prime Minister, Churchill, was born in the Duke of Marlborough family. It was not until 1963 that the Nobility Act passed in England. At that time completely cut off the channel for members of the aristocracy to serve as Prime Minister. According to the provisions of the Nobles' Law, nobles have no right to participate in voting elections, cannot be elected as members of the House of Commons, let alone serve as Prime Ministers of the government. If a member of the aristocracy intends to be Prime Minister, he must renounce his title in advance, leave the House of Lords, and then enter the House of Commons through election. This was the case for Douglas Home, the Conservative Prime Minister who came to power in 1963. Generally speaking, the aristocratic era in England is a thing of the past. British people with noble titles have neither political privileges nor may their families be wealthy. In today's British society, being a lord is just a kind of respectability. Even the British royal family continues to be weakened and becomes more and more like a mascot, for example, at the insistence of the government, in order to save royal family expenses and reduce subsidies to the royal family. The royal downsizing plan has been implemented since last year to eliminate marginal royal members, and Baron knows that in 8 years, in 2010, there will only be 4 members of the royal family, the Queen, the Crown Prince and 2 princes. This means that from then on, the royal family will only retain direct male members, unless the woman is the direct eldest daughter. Bonnie, how are you? Are you resting well? Not bad, Baron. I like the environment here very much. The scenery outside the window is like an oil painting. Until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Bonnie came to the small balcony on the 2nd floor and drank afternoon tea with Baron. At this time, she had already changed into a somewhat palace-style shirt and casual pants. Even these pants could not hide the lines of her long legs. I'm glad you like it here. Besides, your outfit is very charming. Thank you for the compliment, Baron. Do we have any plans for this afternoon? I'm going to take a look at the farm and the manor, as well as the nearby town, where there are some family properties. If you are interested, you can come together. You know, since I was in high school, I haven't been back here very often. There are many, so now after taking over the family business, I need to understand it first. That must be very interesting. I am still very interested in this kind of rural life. When Bonnie was talking, Baron watched her and could see that she was excited at this time, but there was no trace of hypocrisy. There are 35,000 acres of land near Chatsworth Manor, but it is located in Derbyshire, so its value cannot be compared with places like London. However, the amount of crops and livestock produced by such a vast land is also very considerable. Except for a small part of the products produced in the surrounding farms, most of them will be sold. For example, in many towns throughout Derbyshire, there are butcher shops of the Devonshire family. They are also the largest suppliers of agricultural products to residents in nearby areas. Even with other industries including tourism, hotels, etc., the output of the farm sales are also an important part of the family's income source. Under the introduction of the person in charge of the farm, this afternoon, Baron also learned more about this part of his family's business. You know, his predecessor had never been interested in these. Baron, you have taken over the family business now and will continue to run it in the future, right? On the way back, Bonnie sat next to Baron in the car, looking at the scenery outside the window, and suddenly asked. Yes, Bonnie. To be honest, I wasn't interested in this before. I was more interested in other businesses. The endless industry outside the window now belongs to him, and Baron suddenly felt inexplicable. But since I inherited these properties from my family and they have been doing well for so many years, I also have a responsibility to make them continue, or even better. Actually, maybe you don't believe it. Bonnie glanced at Baron, the corners of her mouth turned up slightly, and she said. I quite like this kind of life. When I was young, I read some novels and movies and imagined that I was a noble lady. In such a beautiful manner, I sometimes chased the wind and rode horses. I write while looking at the scenery outside the window in my room. I long for that kind of life. Actually, it's very easy. If you want, you can stay here for a few more days, or when you have another vacation, I will always welcome you. It's a pity that I'm not really a noble girl. I still have to go to work to support myself. I only have a few days off. When the car stopped at the door of the villa, Baron opened the door for Bonnie in a gentlemanly manner. When she put her hand in Baron's and stepped out of the car, he could smell the faint jasmine aroma on the girl's body. Flora's perfume is the best in England. It is relatively popular, after all, the Queen is its loyal customer. Baron remembers that when he first met Bonnie, she smelled of this perfume. Bonnie, didn't you say before that you like writing very much and have written novels before? That what gave Baron some comfort was that there was no more weird British-style Chinese food during dinner. Ah. Dear Olivia, I hope it didn't hurt your enthusiasm for Chinese food. But that was a few years ago. I haven't written anything for a while now. You know, working in a TV station is often quite busy. Bonnie's green eyes were filled with doubts, and she didn't know why Baron suddenly mentioned this matter. I have an idea, but I don't know if it's feasible, so I want to discuss it with you. In fact, when Bonnie came to the manor and talked about the novel she had written, Baron's heart moved and he had some vague ideas. Then after he learned more about the operation of the manor and the attached farm today, this idea became more and more intense. He met Bonnie's eyes and said to her, "Actually, I have always conceived a story about the life of a former aristocrat, but my writing style is not very good, and there are too many things to do, and I can't focus on it, so I have thought about hiring a person. Help me write this story into a novel through my narration." "So you're saying you want to hire me to do this?" By this time, Bonnie had roughly guessed what Baron was thinking, so she asked. "Yes, I wasn't originally prepared to complete it so quickly, but when I met you, your situation is very suitable, isn't it? And you work in a TV station, so you should generally know the salary range of those editors. I can use more. I will hire you to do this at a high price, but there is a premise, that is, you can get a certain percentage of the publishing income of this novel, but the copyright of the novel and other subsequent derivatives must belong to me. Actually, I'm very interested in your story, Baron, but I'm just worried that I'm not capable enough to complete your idea. You know, the novels I submitted before were all rejected, and I really don't have much confidence." Woolen cloth. Bonnie's expression at this time was really worried about gain and loss. Seeing this, Baron stretched out his hand, held her catkin, and said softly, "Didn't you also say that in fact, the editor also recognized your writing style and description, but it was lost in the storytelling, and the storytelling, in this novel, will be completed by me?" When Baron held his hand, you could clearly feel Bonnie's hand shrinking slightly, but she did not continue to pull away. Her face turned slightly red and she whispered, "It's a little too sudden, Baron. Can I think about it? That the data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much." Chapter 29 Novel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Viscount Butte invited me to cooperate on a piece of land. Do you know about this? Bonnie. Since she said she wanted to think about it, Baron changed the subject after eating a freshly cut steak. The steak comes from the manor farm and is very fresh and tastes good. I don't know about this. Bonnie seemed to have thought of something and said, "No wonder my cousin told me about inviting you to the horse racing meeting this time. Baron, do you have a good relationship with my cousin-in-law, Viscount Butte?" That when Bonnie said this, her expression was a little weird. Baron was a little confused. That's not all. In fact, we only met each other for the first time when we attended the Golden Jubilee celebration. Viscount Butte mentioned that he had discussed cooperation with our family. You know, I was very concerned about family affairs before this. I have not participated in it. So that's it, okay. What's wrong? It's nothing, I'm just a little curious. In fact, I rarely go to my cousin's place. Although I have a good relationship with my cousin, she has taken good care of me since I was in college, but she has relatively little contact with Viscount Butte, so I feel that my fate is a bit strange. Are you referring to our encounter, that just when the topic of Viscount Butte was discussed, Baron felt keenly that Bonnie's attitude was a bit strange, but when he asked, she seemed unwilling to talk more, so Baron did not pursue the question, but followed Bonnie's words and joked. Well, I can't make a conclusion yet. Seeing Bonnie wink at him playfully after saying this, Baron picked up his wine glass and clinked it with her, shaking gently. The scarlet wine liquid entered his mouth, with a faint sweetness. He put down the glass and asked. I'm a little curious, Bonnie, what kind of person am I in your eyes? Facing Baron's question, Bonnie thought for a moment and said. Actually, when I was in school, whether it was high school or college, I also met classmates who came from aristocratic families. I felt that some of them were like other people, I mean, they would not take the initiative to tell many things. People who are nobles themselves will not realize that they are children of nobles when they come into contact with them on a daily basis. But there are also some people who feel a little weird. So you think I'm a weird kind of person? Of course not. I knew your identity when I first met you. But the strange thing is that many times, especially this time when I came to your manor, during the process of getting along, I felt like we were friends. Generally, that feeling occupies most of the time. Only suddenly do I remember that the person in front of me is a duke, and I am chatting with a duke. This feeling often makes me feel like Cinderella. Actually, you don't always need to care about my status as a duke, Bonnie. As I told you before, we are already friends, aren't we? Nobles and other things are actually just a label in many cases. This label will give people some aura, but I don't need it when facing everyone. After Baron said these words, he saw Bonnie looking at him with some heart-pounding emotion in her eyes. Baron, I'm really happy to hear you say this. You know, many people have said this, but looking into your eyes just now, I can feel that these words of yours come from sincerely. I am happy that I can be the special one. At this point, Bonnie seemed a little embarrassed, and she lowered her head shyly. I just said that when you mentioned writing a novel, I was afraid that my ability would disappoint you. Also, I had doubts about your purpose at that time. But now, I have decided, I'm going to give it a try, and I hope this decision won't make you regret it, and it won't make me regret it either. I believe neither of us will regret it, Bonnie. Come and cheers and celebrate. After taking another sip of red wine, Baron said to the girl. Tomorrow I will find a lawyer and sort out the relevant agreements, and then we can start. That's a bit of a pity. I won't be able to hear your story until tomorrow. Trust me, it will all be worth it. So the next day, when the Cavendish family's lawyer came to the manor and drafted a contract as agreed by Baron and Bonnie, the two signed it, and the contract was concluded. According to this contract, the novel dictated by Baron and polished by Bonnie will be signed by both of them, and Baron will pay Bonnie corresponding remuneration. The entire copyright of the final work belongs to Baron himself, and the work Bonnie will receive 1/3 of future publishing revenue. Then, after seeing off the lawyer, Baron returned to the study in the manor. He put a recording pen on the table and said to Bonnie in front of him. This story begins with the sinking of the White Star Company's cruise ship Titanic in 1912. At that time, there was a Downton Abbey in Derbyshire, England, where the Earl of Grantham lived. Yes, what Baron told Bonnie was the content of the British TV series Downton Abbey that he had watched in his previous life. Downton Abbey is a fictional aristocratic manor based on the original TV series. In a previous life, this TV series first existed, and then another writer was authorized to write a novel of the same name. The TV series Downton Abbey was the first one launched in 2010. The story was created by the famous British screenwriter Julian Fellowes. The reason why Baron wanted to write it in advance was not just because he hoped to gain some fame through such a novel that was extremely sophisticated about the aristocratic life of that era. It was entirely because the previous Downton Abbey was set in Highclere. The castle was filmed on location. After the show was broadcast, the place became famous and attracted countless tourists to visit. If in the future TV series filmed here, the filming location becomes the Chatsworth Manor that is not inferior to that there, it will also promote many of the family's industries, thus significantly increasing the family's income. Of course, in addition to this, Baron has more other considerations, which need to be carried out step by step later. The reason why he used a voice recorder to record the whole process during his narration is that after he narrates it, Bonnie can better complete the novel Downton Abbey based on this. In addition, these records can also become evidence left by Baron. If Downton Abbey becomes as popular as in the previous life, and there is any dispute between him and Bonnie, this will be Baron's proof that he is the story the most favorable evidence for the creator. In any case, even if the other party is a charming beauty like Bonnie, who makes him very excited, Baron will not trust the other party casually on such a matter of great concern. At any time, he needs to keep enough trump card. In this way, based on his memory, he told Bonnie the content of the first season of Downton Abbey in as much detail as possible. After that, Bonnie could polish it and create the first part of the novel. It's also that Baron is really not good at writing in English, even if it was Chinese, his native language in his previous life. To be honest, he doesn't have much confidence in novel creation, and most importantly, he has too many things to do. If you do it, there is no time to type, so it is very necessary to find a ghostwriter. Bonnie is also his most suitable choice so far. You're right, Baron, this is really a wonderful story. I can't wait to start writing it now, but I can't wait even more because I want to know the rest of the story. Well, actually, I just have some ideas for the rest of the story now, and I still need time to formulate them. But by the time you finish writing this first part, it should be fine. Baron spread his hands and said to Bonnie. Baron, you are so cute and hateful. It seems that I need to work hard to complete these first for the sake of the subsequent story. I can see that the prototype of Downton Abbey in your story is Chatsworth Abbey. I need to use this take 2 days to get to know the etiquette and details of life of the nobles. That's no problem. Bonnie, housekeeper Sean and housekeeper Riley are all experts in this field. You can use them as creative consultants and ask them at any time. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 30 Daisy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sid, my dear brother, how are you doing? After the call was dialed, Baron stood in front of the window and looked at Bonnie, who was talking to the housekeeper Riley outside in the back garden, taking notes quickly with a pen, and spoke into the phone. Baron, you actually called me. Sure enough, our friendship is unbreakable. You can't blame me. Who told you to be sent to Paris? The beauties there must be very enthusiastic. Wow, man, you should really come here to play. Compared to girls in our country, this is a dream city. Hearing the exaggerated tone of his former college friend Sid on the phone, Baron said calmly. Perhaps you have forgotten your former goddess Daisy. Well, that's definitely not the case. Even now, I call her every week. I feel like she's already attracted to me, man. That's just right, dear Sid, I need Daisy's phone number. I want to contact her if I have anything. After hearing Baron's words, Sid's tone became obviously defensive. Baron, what are you doing? Didn't you say you're not interested in people like her? Do you want to take advantage of me while I'm in France? After hearing what the other party said, Baron was speechless for a while. I just have a job and wanted to ask her if she was interested. You know, she was a top student majoring in finance when she was in school. It's because I know you so well, Baron. Sid muttered. Are you sure you really wouldn't do that? Of course, Sid. Okay, I believe you for now. Her phone number is. Although Baron was indeed very philandering in college, there were still girls with whom he maintained friendships, like Daisy, whom he just mentioned to his roommate Sid on the phone. Baron got acquainted with Daisy, a talented financial professional, because his good friend Sid was crazy about pursuing each other at the time. As a result, they went back and forth. Sid did not capture Daisy's heart, and the three of them became friends. Well, it's not that Daisy is not beautiful. She looks like the British Rose in her youth, Caitlin Zeta-Jones. Even her curly hair has the shadow of that actress. It's not that Baron is so loyal that he draws the line on girls his friends like, it's really because although Daisy looks extremely beautiful, her figure is not that bad. She can be considered a supermodel figure, especially at the airport. At that time, it was really difficult for Baron to satisfy his desire for control from Aurora's graceful figure. Baron's predecessor's preferences could be seen, however, after graduation. Baron and Daisy never saw each other again, but from Sid, he heard that Daisy, who had excellent grades, entered an investment bank in London after graduation and seemed to be doing well. After getting Daisy's phone number from Sid, Baron looked at his watch and saw that it was already lunchtime, so he dialed the number. "Hello, this is Daisy." "Hello Daisy, I'm Baron, remember me?" "Baron?" "Baron Cavendish." On the phone, Daisy's voice sounded a little surprised. "It's me, I'm glad you haven't forgotten your old friend. In fact, I have seen some reports about you in the newspapers recently, Your Highness. And you probably haven't mentioned it to Sid. This is an obvious thing. After all, if Sid knew about those reports, he probably wouldn't have behaved like that on the phone just now. Yes, it turns out you got my number from him. You know, I regarded you both as friends before, but Sid was always too enthusiastic. I'm afraid no one knows about his fascination with you. But when the other party has clearly refused many times, this may not be a comfortable attitude. By the way, Your Highness the Duke, is this why you called me today to talk about this? Okay, let's not talk about it. Besides, Daisy, I have always regarded you as a friend, so you don't have to always call me Your Highness the Duke. Just like when you were in school, just call me Baron. Okay, Baron, tell me. It's like this. I have a position here and I need more trustworthy and professional people to help me. I wonder if you are willing. In terms of salary, I can increase it by 50% compared to what you are now. It's really tempting, but Baron, how did you know that I just resigned? You resigned? Why? Because my stupid boss always looked at my thighs with that disgusting look and tried to put his hands on them yesterday, so I gave him a hard slap in the face, so, that's it. Wow, that's great news. What a coincidence, isn't it? So will you accept my invitation? Baron finished his words, and after a short silence, he heard Daisy say. With all due respect, Baron, from the reports I have seen, your current economic situation is not good. I'm afraid this is not a long-term position. You're still so direct, Daisy. Otherwise, you wouldn't just slap that idiot, right? I admire your character, but Daisy, I believe you also understand that rumors are not entirely trustworthy. You still need to judge for yourself what is going on in the world. Why don't you give it a try? A 50% salary increase over the previous one? Yes. What work needs to be done? Help me execute some financial investments. That's all. Of course, you know, Daisy, although I was very carefree before, I never did such nasty things, otherwise you wouldn't have regarded me as a friend before. So when do I need to start working? I will return to London in a few days. I will talk to you in detail then. Maybe I will start working at that time. So you agree? You can give it a try. I hope this salary won't be available for too short a time. Well, at least I can get it. After all, I'm still short of money recently. After confirming that the other party agreed to his invitation for this position, Baron was still very satisfied. After all, in his previous life, he had many years of experience in the financial industry and was quite impressed with the trends of financial investment products since the new century. Therefore, from the very beginning, he was prepared to regard financial investment as his future. One of the main businesses, but in this regard, Baron is still alone and needs an assistant to help him carry out specific investment operations. Family trust funds are mainly in traditional industries and have little connection with financial investment. Moreover, Baron himself hoped to use his own funds to register another company as an investment subject in addition to this fund. Therefore, in the memory of his predecessor, Daisy, a financial genius he met in college, entered his field of vision. No matter what, Daisy had some friendship with her predecessor, and from those memories, Baron also admired this woman's neat personality, so he made today's call. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much.